Okay, tell us about your experience in Nam.
Right. Alright, I got you.
He's Lieutenant Dan.
Lieutenant Dan, that movie's amazing.
It was back in 1961, and I was 18, and I was going through the jungle. I had the ace of spades in my army hat, and I was ready to roll out with my squadron. Charlies were all over the place, and I knew it was going to be an issue. And it could have been a suicide mission. Perhaps we wouldn't make it out of alive, but I knew one thing. I had a cigarette in my pocket, and I was going to smoke it. And I asked my pal Brad, he was from Kansas. I go, Brad, what do you think it's like out here? And he goes, oh, well, I think it's pretty alright. And I go, are you serious? We shot like 8 gooks back there. He goes, yeah, so? It was pretty fun. I remember shooting gophers. It was just the same in Kansas. I go, you're fucked up, Brad. He goes, yeah, I am. I go, that's alright, whatever. And I lit up my ciggy. And I really enjoyed that drag I had as we crossed the Xiaomen River. And I knew things were about to get a little bit bad. And I put one foot in front of the other a moment too soon. And a tripwire sprung out and got Brad by the feet. I go, holy shit, and I raised my rifle and I start shooting into the bush. Arrows were flying out at me and I didn't know what to do. I ran across the river and then I dove back into the water with my M4A1S still going. Except it didn't have a silencer, I'm just saying that. But anyways, so I was in the river swimming, and all of a sudden piranhas started coming at me, and I said, oh shit, are these really piranhas? And then a guy came out of the brush, and I shot him right in the fucking face, and he fell down into the water, and all the piranhas started to eat him. I was sweating bullets, and I was raining bullets on the enemy, but Brad was still there dangling by his feet, getting shot with arrows. I ran up to him, took out my buck knife, and I cut it. And I was like, oh, are you good? And he goes, yeah. And I go, well, you don't look good. You have an arrow in your chest. And he goes, oh, I do. I go, yeah, it's right there. And I point to it. He goes, yeah, that's the one. I go, well, are you going to take it out? He goes, well, I mean, I am a medic, and it probably wouldn't be a good idea to take it, because, you know, it could have hit an artery, and, you know, it could make me bleed out and die. It would have shot. Would have been pretty bad. And I said, all right. That sounds like shit. So when are we going to get back to, you know, home? I don't like being in Vietnam. You know, I had to shoot a lot of Vietnamese today, and I'm pretty worn out. So what do you suppose we do? He goes, oh, well, we could go back to the camp and rape a couple of gooks. And I said, you're fucked up, Brad. And with a smile, he replied, absolutely. And we went back and raped gooks.
Was that it? No.
It was 1924, and the Great Depression was at its height. The stock market collapsed, and my father, a proficient railroad maker, was out of work because none of the railroads were working because there was no oil. And I said, wow, this is terrible. And I went to school with rags, and my shoes weren't even shoes. They were just squirrels, and I caught from the tree and stuck them to the bottom of my feet and put a rope on. I went through 7 feet of snow, climbing up a hill just to get into my school, where I was taught nothing because we didn't have books. We just sat there in the cold, and I was shivering. Icicles were coming down my face, and I was sweating because I knew that when I got home I wouldn't have anything to eat. I only knew that I'd have to pick the meat off of the bones of the animals that were driven over with the rich people's cars, because they're rich and are impervious to anything, especially the stock market crashing. So I ate that, ran over a raccoon that night, and I looked up at my father and my emaciated mother, and she gave me this kind, warm, beautiful, beautiful kiss on the cheek. And a single tear went down my face, and all of a sudden, I knew that as soon as I got out of that house and grew up, I would be destined for great things. But my sister was sick with a terrible disease. She had a little bit of an issue with her knee. She was born without them. She needed crutches to go ahead and walk around, and even then, she needed someone to carry her so that she didn't lose balance. My mother usually did that job, but she was so skinny she could no longer support the weight of my obese sister with no knees because she couldn't exercise. It was hard for her to lose weight. But I did know one thing was for certain. And it's that my sister was the most amazing person I ever knew. She was ready to conquer the world along my side. And I remember looking at an ad on the radio of an interesting man advertising in the 1920 horse races, and that we could place our bets. And it went a little something like this. All right, for the 1923 horse races, we're going to be going in with a new horse race coming at right now in downtown Manhattan. And then I knew. That's when I was going to take the last $5 that our family owned and go down to those horse races. And I was going to save my sister by betting on the lowest horse that had the lowest chance of winning. Because I knew with a roll of the dice, I was going to be able to make it big. And I was going to be able to win everybody's money. And then I'll be the rich guy who's going to be running over raccoons. So I went down to the horse race track and I bet that $5 down. And I knew with eager eyes that I was going to be winning it. And as the horses broke out, they ran so fiercely. They were kicking up the track. The mud was flying into the faces of the poor people, and the rich were laughing, eating their filet mignon and sipping on champagne. I knew that this was going to be the day that I made history as the youngest man to ever win an illegal gambling play in 1924. And as it came down to the final finish, it was my horse, the Great Avenger, going up against the Red Rocket, the top star horse. And with a whinny, the Great Avenger sprinted out, and with its last kick, broke its leg and slid on the turf as the Red Rocket ran past. And the Red Rocket managed to leap over and get shot in the head by a hunter in the stand. Wanting to feed his family, he killed the Red Rocket, and the horse that I bet on slid past the finish line. The jockey on the horse ended up dying due to blood and a broken leg. I knew that this is the day I was going to make history. With my bet, I got over $400,000 million that I was able to spend fixing up my family. I was a family man, and I knew that my sister would become not bad, not a cripple anymore.
Not bad.